Hey guys, it's Matt, welcome to Speed Tutor, and today we're going to be making a camera system or a photo system which allows us to take a screenshot of the screen essentially, and then we're going to force that into a UI element that can look like that we made and which would develop the picture over time. And we'll look at being able to, we can change the color space, and we'll be able to have post-processing and being able to take that into account, because some of the features or the ways to do this don't take into account after it's done all the post-processing on the camera. Then we'll look at UIs, we'll look at fading, we'll look at loads of cool little effects to be able to portray this in your UI and to be able to use it within your game. And of course, remember, I will put this all on my Patreon for you to get access to it. And I wanted to mention that my website that I've just redeveloped has all of my assets from the Unity Asset Store on there, with reductions compared to what you would pay on the Unity Asset Store. And for all my subscribers, you get an additional 5% off, and you can find that in the description, along with bonus discounts if you become a patron. So be sure to throw a like on this video. All I've got in my start scene is an FPS controller, and I've got some basic game objects just set up just to hold everything that I want. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to create a little sort of canvas just so we can hold the picture that we take in a UI element. So what you can do, right click, UI, choose canvas. Once we've got our canvas, I'm just going to rename this to camera canvas. I'm just going to scale with screen size and height and set this to 1920 by 1080. Right click that again, choose UI and choose image. And the image is going to be the thing that I'm going to set my screenshot into, 280 by 720. Just so that we've got something even in the middle. And the image here, I'm just going to name that to photo capture. We need to create a script to be able to capture it. So we'll right click in the project panel, go create and choose C#. And I'm just going to call this photo capture. Open up in Visual Studio. I wanted to quickly show everybody this. If you're not using the gamma color space, you can use screen capture.capture screenshot texture as your reference, because we're going to actually use one that's called read pixels, and that's what you can use. But you need to take that into account. If you're using linear or using post-processing, you need to use the way that I'm going to show you how to do it. So we'll go back into our script here. What we're going to do is get rid of the two starting methods. And what I'm going to do is start by writing a private texture 2D, because this is the thing that we're going to capture from the screen. I'm just going to call this the screen capture. We're going to just use a namespace at the top saying Unity engine.ui. So now below our first variable, what I want to do is I want to create a void start, and then we're going to say that our screen capture is equal to a new texture 2D that we're going to capture, and then we're going to say by the screen.width, screen.height, the texture format.rgb24, and we're going to say whether we want mipmaps. It's going to be false, and we need to make sure texture format has a capital T. So this is going to start by initializing this variable. It's going to be the set screen height and width of what we got of our current screen. Now under here, what we could do is we might want to take a screenshot in update. So we can just say void update, and then we're going to say that if input.get mouse button down, in brackets we're just going to put 0 for this is going to be just my left click, and every time I do my left click I'm going to say take the screenshot or whatever it may be that I'm going to do. Underneath the update method, we're just going to say enumerator, because we need to use this. We're going to use a coroutine to actually make sure that we finished all rendering of post-processing and anything that's done, and we'll only capture the screenshot after everything else is rendered. So we can call this as capture photo. What we can do is we can say yield return new, wait for end of frame. You can just put two brackets and a semicolon, and we'll call that method just to make sure that everything is ended. Now we want to create a new rect, so a rectangle that we're going to create, and we're going to call this it's going to be the region to read, and we're going to set that equal to new rect. So we're going to create a new one at position 0, 0, so at the very bottom corner, and then we're going to say screen.width, screen.height, and put a semicolon at the end. So what this means is the region that we're going to read is the screen width and height, similar to the 2D texture, and we're going to be able to put that into there. So now we can say that our screen capture which is the variable that we created, .read pixels. Read pixels allows us to take the capture from the screen and save that into texture. So like I say, if we select that, we then need a source, which is the rect that we created, and then we need a destination that we might want to use. So we can use the region to read, then we can say 0, 0. So we'll just put it from the bottom again, and we'll just write false because we don't want to update any of the bitmaps again. And then we can say screen capture, which is our variable, .apply, and this just applies all previous and set pixel changes, and this is, I think, a costly maneuver to do, so only do this when you need it to happen. So that then will read our screen and capture in the area that we want and add it to that texture 2D. Now, how are we going to add that? Because in Unity's UI, we can't use texture 2D to actually transfer the image or the screenshot that we've taken. We need to actually use something to convert it into a sprite to use it into the UI. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to create another method called show photo. So we'll say void show photo. We'll start by writing a variable of sprite, and I'm just going to name this my photo sprite. Set that equal to uppercase sprite.create, because we're going to create a sprite out of it, and then we're going to specify screen capture with a comma. And you can see that create takes a 2D texture, which we just created, a rect by size, and then a vector 2D, which is the pivot, and that's how we create it in a particular position. Then we're going to say new rect, and then we're going to open up and say 0, 0, 0.0f, 0.0f, because we're going to do it at the bottom of the X and Y again. Then we're going to choose our screen capture dot width, screen capture dot height. Then we're going to make sure that's closed up at the end, put a comma, new vector 2, and then in brackets we'll say 0.5f, 0.5f, which will be the very center of it. We'll make sure that's encapsulated and put a comma at the end and say 100.0f with a semicolon, which is just how many pixels per unit that it uses. And then what we're going to do is that we need to actually set the actual where the photo area is going to be and set that equal to the photo sprite that we're going to use. So what we want to do is we can go back up to the top and we'll create another variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a header at the top and then write in square brackets serialized field and say that we've got private image and set this as to our photo display area. Now what we can do, like I said down here, we can get rid of the comment and I can say that the photo display area dot sprite is now equal to the photo sprite that we've just created. Now what we can do is we can test this out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to update my update method here and say that we're going to use start coroutine and we're just going to write capture photo in there and have a semicolon on the end. So now what we can do, I've just got an empty game object and I'm just going to add my photo capture script, and now you can see I've got a photo display area that I want, and that was my photo capture, which was just this image down here. Now what I can do is I can just potentially get rid of this item which is in the UI because it would take a screenshot of that and we don't want it to. So what I could do is I could just press play now, and when I'm looking around I could just left click here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the game, go to our captured photo and press the little tick, and if I unhide it as well, you can see that now that photo that we'd taken was here and it was just put in the middle of our screen because we've just forced that image into that sprite, and it's specified because I made that UI a maximum of 1280 by 700. Now if I click we get that weird effect because it just takes with the screenshot on our screen and it'll just do it forever. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spice this up a little bit. So we're going to make sure that we have this object in the UI in a specific environment that we want to use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click my canvas, go UI and choose image. I'm just going to rename this to my photo frame background. I'm going to make it look like a Polaroid kind of picture. So once we've got that, I'm going to just hide my photo capture there. I'm just going to click on my photo frame and I'm going to set this to 800 by 800. I'm going to go into 2D mode and select it there, and you can see that it's directly in the center. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this photo frame and then parent that to the photo frame BG. I'm going to rename this to photo holder mask, and this is going to be something that we're going to mask off the larger screenshot and make sure that we force it into a really smaller slot. So if I just make this black, you can see that that's just the same size. Now if I make this 720 by 720, you can see that it fits nicely into our box. You can choose whatever size. And I'm just going to go back and make my height actually 870, just so we get a bigger box. I'm just going to, and then I'm going to go up and I'm just going to force this up here slightly in this position. So now it looks more like a Polaroid. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my photo holder mask and add a new component and call this I'm just going to get a mask component and add that to it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my photo texture area to there, and you see that when I apply it, you can see that it's masked the area off. So if I select the other and I just turn that to white, and then I select my photo capture and turn that to black, you could see that my photo capture area is now masked by the object in the middle. So no matter how big this is, we could make it really massive. It will always mask that area exactly where we want it to be. So we can keep it at 1280 by 720. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it at the very limits of the top and bottom, and you can decide where you want it to be, and I'll leave it in the middle. So I'm going to just rename that to the photo display area, and now I need to set that to white because I need the image that we've put into this slot to be visible. Now what I'm going to do, because when I click to capture the photo I want it to fade in on against a black background, I'm just going to duplicate this photo display area, put that above so it will be on top, and I'm just going to set that to black, and I'm just going to set that to photo display area background, because the front image is going to fade in over the top of that black image, so it just makes it look nicer when we're creating a Polaroid picture. It's like the song. We can go back into our script again. What we're going to do is create a variable at the top, and we're going to call this a square brackets serialized field private game object, and we're going to have this as our photo frame, so the actual overall Polaroid that we're going to create. In the show photo section, you can see that once we've taken it and we want to show the actual item, we might want to say that our photo frame .setActive is equal to true. So then it will display it, because we can have this off by default. And then we might want a way to actually get rid of the photo once it's been displayed. We can create another variable just below the screen capture and say private bool viewing photo with a semicolon. And then we can say in our if statement, if we left click, we can say that if we're not viewing the photo, then we can start the coroutine to capture a photo. But in any other instance, we can do else. We can have a method called remove photo, like so. Now below here, we can just create another that method that we wanted, which was void remove photo, and then we can say that viewing photo is equal to false if we've removed it. The photo frame should equal to false because we don't want it anymore, and then if we've got any camera UI, we should also set that to true. But we can copy photo frame here, and it's not equal where you've got to set active because it's a game object, set active to false. And we can also say in where we capture the photo, we want to say up above here, we want to say that viewing photo is equal to true because we are viewing it if we've started to capture it. And here we can say that if there's any main camera UI elements, we can set that to false too, but we'll come on to that. We'll test this out now. Just enable that viewing area. I'm just going to hide the entire photo frame BG, and then we're going to go to my manager and add in the photo frame like so. I'm going to look at somewhere in my game here, click, then you can see that it's done there, and we can left click to get rid of it, and we can look somewhere else at this section, and there you go. And it will force that screenshot into that small slot which has been cropped by the mask that we've used to make sure that it does it. We might want to add more cool effects, so we might want to do a little flashlight or a little flash to do that. We might want to add a little fade and some things just to spice this up initially. So what I'm going to do, go out of play mode, go to my FPS controller or something that has my camera which is ever looking at anything in the first place. What I'm going to do is right click, choose light, and I'm just going to choose a point light. I'm going to put my point light in front of the player. I'm going to set the radius to around 30. Or the range, should I say. Set it to real time, put the intensity to 2. You can see that it's quite bright, but we don't need that by default. We're just going to add that and parent that to our FPS controller or just to the main camera because that's what's going to look around. We'll just name that to our camera flash, and it's disabled, so it's not visible. We only just need to make that appear for a second. So then what we can do below here is we can just add a new header, and then I'm going to write square brackets serialized field private game object camera flash, and then serialized field private float flash time, or the time that it's actually going to flash for. So what we're going to do is below where we're going to actually show the photo is that when we do the photo frame, we actually want to create a coroutine to do flash. So what we'll do below here, we'll do IEnumerator again to create a coroutine. I'm going to call this our camera flash effect. Play some audio. We can say that our camera flash dot set active is true. Then we can say yield return new, wait for seconds. Then in brackets, we're going to use the flash time with a semicolon. Then we're going to say that our camera flash dot set active is false, because we're only going to be able to display that for a very short time. So now again, in our show photo, we need a start coroutine, and then open brackets, that can be our camera flash, and call that method. Make sure that that is a capital, and we have camera flash effect in here. Now what we can do is go back into Unity again, can select my manager, grab the camera flash effect there, and I'm going to set this just to 0.2. Now if we go and press play again, you can see that we've got it here. We got a flash and we got the picture taken as something like that, and you could create a delay before you show the picture if you wanted it to be a split second longer. Now what I'm going to do is we might want to make the object fade in. So if we click on the photo display area, and I make this whole thing visual by clicking the photo frame. Now the photo display area is all well and good, but we might want to fade this in. So like I said, we can add a canvas group to this object. And now you can see if I just get rid of the background behind it and I fade this out, you can see that it will fade in and out based on the canvas group. Now what we can do is go to Window, Animation, and Animation. And with that photo display area selected, I will just press Create. I'm just going to create a brand new animation and just call this my photo fade. Press save on that, and you can see here we can press record. So you can see now from the beginning it should be 0 because we don't need our photo to be visible, and in around 1 second we can set our photo to fully visible, so we get a little transition like this. So there you go, just like that. Now we can finish recording because we've finished with that. We can go to the photo fade and we can make sure that it doesn't loop. We can go to the animator, which can go to Window, Animation, and Animator. So now this is what we've got on the animator, and you can see that I can just put the exit, entry, and any state together, and you can see that my photo fade is there. We're going to right click and we're going to create a state, and we're going to create an empty state, which is going to be where it starts. So we'll right click that, set as default, and I'm just going to name that as default state. So that's going to be where it starts and it doesn't do anything. And you can see that the photo fade will have a speed of 1, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to remember that name, so we'll copy that photo fade. We're going to use that. You're going to make sure you check the display area, and it does have our animation ready to use. We can now enable our other object, and I can select my photo display area and make sure that I set it back to white again. Now we're going to go back into our script, and I'm going to create another set of variables. So I'm going to get another header, and then I'm going to set a square brackets serialized field and say private animator, and I have this as our fading animation. And then we're going to scroll down to the show photo section after the flash effect. Then we're going to say that our fading animation dot play, and then in open brackets and in quotes we can just say photo fade with a semicolon on the end. We need to disable the photo frame background and disable that. Then we need to go onto our manager and add the photo display area again to our animation section, and it'll find the photo display area animator. Then we can press play, and now as you can see, if I look here and left click, you will get a picture, and it will fade in the actual picture that we're taking. So it looks like we're developing a photo, just like so. And you could take this, make this longer to fade in. If you go to the animator, you could either slow the clip down in script or go to the fade and just change the speed to a slower or lower amount. Now you might want to add a little bit of decoration and a sound effect to this, and I'll show you quickly how to do that. So I've just got some UI elements, and you can get all of this stuff on my Patreon to get access to this entire project, scripts and UI elements. And I'm just going to add a canvas here. I'm just going to call this my camera UI. I'm just going to add that above. I'm going to get rid of the image from there because I don't need it. All it is just to hold the rest of my UI. I'm just going to add another image. I'm going to go into 2D mode, zoom out, and then I've got some specific sprites that I wanted, which are 256 by 256. that I just wanted to add to areas of my screen. And now you can see all my elements here, where I've just added these to the corners of the screen and the center. And what we can do is you can anchor these elements if you really wanted. And I could set this, and I could just add another canvas group to these and maybe set the opacity just slightly down on these just so they aren't quite as bright, or change the color, of course. Then what we can do is go back to the top, and under our photo taker we can just write another square bracket serialized field, private game object, and then we can just call this our camera UI because we're going to disable some of that. I'll just copy that section. Now at the top here of our capture photo, we want to make sure that our camera UI is equal to false before we even look at capturing the texture area, or it will record the UI, and we don't want that because it won't look very nice. Then on our remove, at the bottom here, remove photo, we can say camera UI.setActive is true, so we have that UI back again. And then let's say that one last thing that we wanted to create was the sound effect that we had. So on an empty game object I have here, which is just the camera audio game object, and I'm just going to add a sound that I've got, which is just the sound of a click or a shutter sound. And you can see here that I don't want it to play on a wake or loop. That's absolutely fine. Now if I go back to our script again, and we can just create a couple of variables at the top. I'm just going to add audio, and I'm just in our private audio source, which is my camera audio. And then at the bottom where I wanted to play the audio, I can put the camera audio dot play, as simple as that. And then what I can do is I can make sure that I add my audio into the inspector slot, and add the camera UI, which is going to be on our canvas, which is everything right there. And once we press play and we left click, you can hear the sound effect, and we get the image, and it takes away the UI before we take the image, and we get it there. And just remember, my yellow little cursor in the center is just something that is always there because it's just for the center of the recording. So again, I will upload this to my Patreon for you to get access to it if you want to, with all the scripts and the entire project. And I'll make sure I do all the great naming conventions. So do let me know what you think of this tutorial, because it took me quite a bit to put together. So be sure to come and support me on Patreon to get access to over 115 different scripts on projects you can't find anywhere else. Come and join me on Discord. Come and check out my new website, which has discount codes if you become a patron to my channel, or you check out the description and you can get money off all my Unity assets on there, and let me know what you think. So thank you so much to all my patrons that have supported, and everybody else who comes to watch the video. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.